Hello, I'm BJ from Hearns Hobbies, and I have a really special unboxing today. This is the 72nd scale Tamiya F-35B, and I was lucky enough to see this when it was unveiled at the Shizuoka Hobby Show this year. But we finally have them here now, and it looks like a great model. So I've had a look at the 48 scale, so let's have a look at what is different with the 72nd scale. Apart from size. All right, let's look at the box art. Beautiful box art. It's not just a photo of the aircraft, it's actual graphics. So you may notice that on some of the earlier 72nd scale kits from Tamiya, it was just a photograph on the box, but we're going for, I guess it's a more premium graphic where it depicts the aircraft actually in use. And it is quite a thick box for 72nd. So you can imagine there's quite a few bits in here. So we've got, this is number 93 of the 72nd scale range. So that means it's the 93rd kit they've produced. F-35B, and the B is the vertical takeoff and landing version of the F-35. Now it has similar look to the F-35A, and the idea was when they were developing the aircraft, they wanted to use common components. So the cockpit is very similar. But there are obvious differences too, because this is vertical takeoff and landing. The technology is quite different. It is a little bit shorter, and it has these, I guess it's an air intake for the propulsion underneath the aircraft, and also it has the turning engine nozzle, so it vectors downwards to actually have downward propulsion. Now with this kit, it can be built in two options. So you can see here, we've got landed mode with all the panels open, or we have flight mode with all the panels open. And the main difference being, apart from the stand, is we've got, let's get that focused a bit better, I think. Here we go. What we have is the undercarriage is fully extended in the flight mode because they're unweighted, but in the landed mode, they're fully compressed. So we've got two sets of landing gear struts, and then there's an option to have the stand mounted on, or there's a panel that covers up the little hole for the mount if you want to have it landed like so. There are 5 different markings for these 3 different countries. So you've got American, English, and Italian markings in the kit. What have we got on the other side? So here we go, with some indications of some of the different markings. They're showing this with undercarriage up, but actually you don't have that option. It's undercarriage down with all the panels for vertical takeoff and landing. Okay, let's have a look at the bits inside. Now if we take that box off, we've got a whole bunch of bits. Now if I focus that better here, there we go. Actually you can see some nice surface detail there. So you can see how Tamiya do have, well, they'll have all the CAD already done for the 48 scale. And so what they'll do is they'll reduce it to 72nd and simplify the parts and the molds to be able to produce it in 72nd nicely. But let's go through and see what all the bits are about, because there's quite a number in there. Let's start off with the top of the fuselage. Oh, this has still got staple in there. Let's just get rid of that. Now the thing about these modern aircraft is they are all one tone, so they're a bit of a challenge to get them looking interesting. So you can see it's molded in one grey. So imagine if we just painted that all grey. So it would normally be, I don't know, a challenge to get it looking interesting. But we've got a lot of surface detail here. So you've got those jagged details where it's deflecting the shape of the panels, and that's how it gets its low radar signature. And having them pronounced like so, I mean, they're just minutely, from the surface, but you can see how much work they've put into getting all that surface detail in there. You've got the ragged edge here as well, back of the engine nozzle. Over here you can see the big wedge shape for locating the vertical stabilizer, and that's something they've incorporated into quite a few of their modern kits. So it means that when you drop that locator in with that vertical stabilizer, it's pretty much at the correct angle. Because you've got so much surface area, it pretty much sets itself in the correct position, rather than your old days where it used to be slotted and you'll have to judge it by eye to make sure your angles are correct. So a lot less worrying from that point of view there. As we go around, you can see just how nice everything is. Even here, we get the shadows right so you can see all those details on the surface. Look at the fan detail here. I think it's quite spectacular. And that's going to be fully open like so. So you have full view of that right there. We've got the cockpit opening there. And then we're going to have inside, and you see how thin all these components are to allow for the cockpit module to fit in there and show it nicely, I guess, accurate to the thickness of the walls. You can see all these locating points. So similar to the 48 scale, it's going to have these modules that fit inside and give some structural integrity to the middle of the fuselage. Some detail there that would be visible from the end. And you will have some sections here and here. These are for the optional holes for fitting on other things. Now around the centers, this would be the profile, I can't remember what you call them, but they increase the visibility of the aircraft during training. So you make them more visible, I guess, to aid in training exercises. But during deployment, they'll be smooth like this. All right, so there's a top yard fuselage. So it's already looking pretty impressive. So very nice. Let's go onto the bottom of the fuselage. So again, we've got a nice chunky bit, but you'll notice that there's quite a lot of cutaway. Again, we have some beautiful surface detail. It's all the way extended through the bottom and the bottom of the wings. This section here is the ordnance ports. And it's great, there's a really massive sprue here, which ensures that this doesn't warp during the molding process. There's the interior. Let's get up tighter. There we go. Again, you see that surface detail. Exquisite. This whole section here is for the optional nut for fixing on the stand if you want it in flight mode. Got some nice chamfered edges here where the covers would meet when it's closed. And then on the wings, look at all that filleting. Then on the inside, so quite a bit of detail there too, and a lot of locating points again for the modules that help to strengthen the whole model when it's put together. And then you have the guides here for drilling out holes if you're doing particular ordnance. And if you don't want to fit any ordnance, you can leave it as is and it'll be a smooth wing. So it's up to you. Okay, so there's the bottom of the fuselage. Let's continue on. All right, so we've got some vertical stabilizers here and some door panels. Pack it with a screwdriver and a screw. That'll be very familiar to people who have built the large F1 kits or motorcycle kits. So there's a nut in there with a screw to fit on the stand if you like. And here we have, getting close, the vertical stabilizers. And you see here where I was talking about those large locating panels. And I'll move this around and you can see that really fine detail there too. Here's the door panels full of ordnance. Super sharp molds. Really fine panel lines as well. That's probably the nose wheel. Looks like undercarriage bay. There we go. So that's spruce C. All right, what do we have here? We've got some engine components. Okay, so this section here acts like a module on the inside. So that gets sandwiched between the two fuselage halves and is part of the engine nozzle. And you see this is the end which protrudes through the back of the fuselage as well. Really nice rivet detail there. And the bottom section. I'll get closer and you see all that. Quite amazing how they've gotten all that detail to wrap all the way around to the sides. Because with injection molding, usually the sides suffer from having very soft detail. But they've done a remarkable job there. And also the matching part on the back here. See how the rivets go all the way around there as well. There's that engine nozzle. And that module part. Very clever engineering. Okay. Next we have some clear parts. So we've got the canopy. It's getting close. So there's the canopy itself. You notice there is a mold line down the center here. I wonder if that's meant to be there. I'm not too sure. I checked the manual to see if you need to polish that out, because some canopies, they will need to be polished. But apart from that, I mean, it is very clear. We also have the guidance sensor system there, and then some navigation lights there for the wingtips. All right, we're getting into some bigger sprue now. Chunky bits. So here we have the base of the cockpit. You've got the air intakes for the engine, cockpit, internal frame for the windshield. There's lots of little bits here. There's the panel for the center propulsion through the belly. You've got undercarriage. So I'm not too sure if that's the extended or the compressed. That definitely looks extended. And here's the other side. So let's have a closer look at some of these finer details. Now look at the fins on there. That'll be just barely noticeable, I think, from the outside, but it's got really sharp detail. We have the very toothed effect here. It's very pronounced. And the fine engraving along the edge. So here's the external part of the nose. That's the bottom of the nose. This is where the weapon system and where the undercarriage will come out over here. We've got the supports here for the undercarriage doors. Here we have the frame for the windshield. And there's the bottom of the cockpit, which I'll spin around. And you've got some nice detail molded in there as well. Now, what have I missed? I was going to show you the... Well, I've got some more doors here. So this is the fully extended front undercarriage. I'm guessing that because it's got the very long length right there. And it's interesting the way that they've designed this section. Now let's spin it around. Now traditionally, you'll have these sections here, which are mounted into the front undercarriage. I guess it's a box section. And they tell you, so be careful when you're looking at the manual, you don't glue this in. But this is dropped in place, and then it's all glued together, and then you deploy this at a later stage. And this is the first time I've seen this, that to deploy it, you actually need to cut this section of the sprue, and then this will hinge outwards. And that's very clever thinking, because what they're doing here is they're getting this to be sandwiched within the construction of the front undercarriage. It stays out of the way until the very last step where you trim it and then you actually bring it forward. Because how often have we built aircraft, you put on these undercarriage arms and you break them off during the construction process. So that's clever indeed. So pay attention to that, because if you glue that in place, you're going to be in lots of trouble. Make sure you don't glue it, and then towards the end you'll snip it and then you bring it forward, and then you can put on the struts and glue it if you want to make it more permanent. Alright, so let's have a closer look at some of this. Rear undercarriage, and this is one of these parts that I really like too. Rather than having round shafts like you traditionally would going into a wheel, these are actually angled. So very much like the vertical stabilizers, when you put on the wheels, you don't have to make sure that they're true. They're always in the right position when you put it onto these triangular looking pieces. Some more doors, and then over here got another bit of a turbine. Okay, so that's, I don't know, what do you call this bit? Lower, cockpit fuselage with intakes and other bits. Okay, let's move on to another big set of sprue. And this has got some of those modules which I was talking about that strengthen the fuselage. So a section like this and this. We've got some ordnance here. We've got engine panel covers. Here's the engine nozzles. And you've got sections of the optional stand here. So they're to be built up if you want to put it into flight mode. Here's all the interior detail you see. So that's going to be visible from all those open panels. Give me a number there. Let's focus on that. There we go. All right, so have a look at all that piping, all that plumbing. It's very nice. I mean, this is pretty well done for 72nd scale. Is quite a small scale. These are sides to that. Here's the main undercarriage wheels. Oh, that's a section of the stand there. Okay, so legs that go out. And then again on this side. That's the opposing side. Two-piece wheels. Just need to glue those together. This is the brake detail there. Not too sure what they are, but I mean, they've gotten some nice surface detail. Here's parts of the engine nozzle. Just look at how crisp that is. That one there as well. You can see all the hoses and the plumbing there as well. The sharp tooth edges here are super sharp. Very nice. More engine bits. They look like door panels. More panels for the center, for the ordnance. And here's some of the ordnance there. They look like sidewinders. And these are bigger stuff. Okay, so that's that lot of sprue. And then we have our last sprue, which is, this is the very base of the cockpit. So you've got the weapons systems here, that's the undercarriage bay. We've got, these would be the horizontal stabilizers. Another part of that module in the center. We have a pilot figure. So there's a torso with the legs, and then you have the helmeted head here with the separate arms. That's a nice touch, because a lot of kits these days don't come with any pilots. Got the ejection seat around here. And then this looks like the compressed undercarriage. And they're probably the compressed rear undercarriage. All right, let's get in a bit tighter. All right, let's look at the ejection seat. You've got the halves of the ejection seat right there. Cushion section with the headrest. The seat. We've got our pilot right here. And Tamiya pilots are always very, very nice. There's a helmeted head. And the arms. Got some fine little details there. There's a big module that goes in the center of the aircraft. You've got some ordnance pylons. You see the surface detail which is on that horizontal stabilizer. Fine panel lines. Again here you can see the nice textures. Oops, over here. And here's that undercarriage. So compressed and compressed. And remember, if you choose this one, don't glue it in when you're putting it into the module. And here we go, here's the front undercarriage bay. Very nice. I like it a lot. So there's all your plastic bits. From there we have some decals. I'm not going to take the decals out of the packet. They are low vis, and there's 5 different markings for the 3 different countries. You can just see some of the country insignia there. You got some flags. Lots of stencils, plenty of stencils. Unfortunately, you won't be able to see them too well there. It's got the protective tissue paper that's in front of it. Okay, so it's a big sheet of decals for a 72nd scale aircraft. And then we have this guide here. This is for placement of the stencils. And just look at all these numbers. Each one of these numbers in a circle is a decal. Okay, so it's going to add some interest to it as well. Like I said before, I mean, single colored aircraft are always a challenge to make it interesting. So you've got A, B, C, D, and E versions that you can choose from. So 5 different versions from 3 countries. So you've got this as well. And then you've got the rest of them here. C, D, and E. So nice, so it's a big sheet with all the 5 different versions on there. And then let's get into the manual. All right, let's zoom this out a bit. Get that focused in there. All right, so we've got our paint guide here, which has always got the Tamiya colors. They do have specific colors that they've released for the kit, which is in a spray can and also in lacquer bottles. So they're the grays. All right, so as we get into it, you have to choose which version you're going to build it in, the hovering version or the landed version. So pay attention with which bits to use. Recommended tools, and then we get into preparation of the fuselage. So guides here to drill out some holes. There, if you're putting in the radar cross-section enhancers, that's the word I was looking for before. And they're there for making them easier to see for exercises. Some painting guides here. We move on to the top of the fuselage, a few bits being glued on there. Cockpit. Cockpit is glued into the top of the fuselage. We've got the undercarriage portion there, which we just saw not long ago. Over here we need to choose between the 2 different front undercarriages, fully extended, unweighted, and weighted for landed. That all gets sandwiched between the 2 sides of the lower cockpit or the lower front end of the fuselage. Got the air intakes that go on, and then that as a whole module is dropped into the top of the fuselage. Okay, so now we work on the lower part of the fuselage. Painting of the interior there in a white, and then holes to be drilled if you're going to be using these particular radar cross-section enhancing parts. Okay, so spin it around. We've got that radar enhancing part glued on if you wish to use that. Painting guide. And then we work on that big module or component in the center for all of the ordnance. So these are the hidden ordnance in the center of the aircraft, and also some of the engine detail here. You can see how that's glued in. So that's a huge part which helps stabilize the center of the aircraft. Without something like this, it would be very easy to squeeze and crush, creating cracks. And then that's all sandwiched together with the top part of the fuselage and the lower half of the fuselage, and you get most of the aircraft assembled. Okay, next we go to all the finer parts. So we've got the engine doors. These are the doors on the base of the engine when the engine is fully folded and facing down for hovering. Okay, so there's the parts here with the right angle. All the nozzle ends glued on, and then that is attached to the fuselage all in one go. We've got the undercarriage, the wheels been glued together. Again, we've got the rear or the main gear. So you've got your hovering or your landed versions. Again here. And then they're mounted inside with your struts. We've got the main landing gear doors getting done now. They're glued on. And this is that section I was talking about where you need to cut. Let's get in tight with it. So right here, so you see how this undercarriage was dropped into the bay to begin with. So you make sure you don't glue that. And it's actually held in place by that little tab there. And when you get to this stage, this is where you use side cutters to trim it from here so you can actually, where it's stowed, extend it out. So pay attention to that part. That's really important. Okay, so from there we've got the doors. You've got your front undercarriage wheel. And then again, we've got the two different scissor struts there for the hovering mode or the landed mode because they're different angles. Finally, we have the hovering center, what do they call that? The lower lift fan doors. There we go. Got those there, and then we've got some ordnance. So you've got your AIM-120s. They're in the center there. The flaperons, horizontal stabilizers, and then all those sections are glued in place. Again, you can see these big, massive struts, and they've got that triangular section so that when they get put into that actual part, they get aligned at the right angles. All right, so we've got ordnance getting glued on. You've got your vertical stabilizers dropping into place. Again, you've got those large flaps that, or tabs that guide the angle on those. We've got the ejection seat construction, pilot, and then there's all different painting guides for helmet colors and art. Ejection seat dropped in, pilot dropped in. The dash or the instrument panel and the hood. You've got the auxiliary intake doors getting glued on. We've got the lift fan door glued in the open position, and then we have the canopy. So internal frame glued onto the clear canopy. So what have I got here? 92. Okay, so it looks as though, so those lines that were on the canopy, which I noticed before, doesn't look like you need to polish them out because there are decals that go across here. So you probably leave those there. I have to check somewhere else, but yeah, I think you would leave those on. And then we have the stand that gets put together if you want to put it in the hovering mode. Now the hovering mode, you just screw the stand into the base through that little hole I showed you before. But if it's in the landed mode, there is a blanking plate you can put on. And that's it. Painting instructions and decal guide. All right, so there you go. That's my open box review of the Tamiya 1/72 scale F-35B Lightning. I hope you enjoyed that. So if you liked the video, please give me a like. If you have any questions, just pop them in the comments. And if you want to see more content like this, think about subscribing. So thank you for joining me.